What's up, dolls? Hey, how's everybody doing? I know this is another impromptu, quote unquote, kind of live. This is one of those lives I've been pushing back for like 2 weeks now because I'm not usually live on a Monday, but here we are. So I'm glad that you're here watching live. And if you're not watching live and you're watching the replay, I'm still glad that you're here. So, as you can tell by the title, today I do want to talk about signs that it's time to leave your church and how to find a new church. So we're gonna like kind of be talking a little bit about toxic church culture and just some things that in my own journey that I have realized and that I think will be helpful to just share with you guys, because the reality is a lot of us don't stay in the same church that we grew up in or what have you. Some of us might be new to the faith and we don't quite know like what to look for. So I just want to share some gems with you. But if you're watching the replay, I am going to get started around the 5 or 6 minute mark. I do want to give people time to get this live and come on in. And I also want to just make a few announcements. So first and foremost, always check the description box when you come on my videos, because there is a ton of goodies in there and I don't want you guys to miss out. Also, if you are a Christian single woman with or without kids, doesn't matter, make sure you join Single and Saved in the City, because we are starting to have in-person meetups too. We had a virtual Bixer last month, which was a lot of fun. We had women from over 7 different states register and attend. We had women from all ages, backgrounds, like I said, with children, without children. It was just a lot of fun. I did a giveaway with my friends from Luxurious Ambiance. My friend Ebony owns that company. And then our very own Kim Hernandez of About God Shop. She gave away a t-shirt and I gave away $50 cash. I mean, it was just a lot of fun. So if you're in the Atlanta area this month or nearby, if you don't mind, traveling to the Atlanta area this month, we are going to Andretti's Indoor Karting and Games. It's in Marietta, Georgia. It is so much fun there. It's like, to me, it's like an elevated Dave and Buster's. So if you enjoy like that kind of environment, that Dave and Buster's environment, you would enjoy an Andretti's. To me, it's even better in my personal opinion. You have indoor go-karting, which looks like a lot of fun. You have virtual reality games, you have laser tagging, you have bowling, they have a restaurant area if you just want to sit and eat, they have a sky bar, they've got your arcade games. I mean, they literally have like anything for anybody, and it is family friendly. So if you do have children and you're a Christian single woman, go ahead, bring the kids, bring a friend or two, and let's just have fun. It's going to be October 22nd, Saturday, October 22nd, starting at 2 p.m. Eastern. There's no end time because I didn't like reserve a room or space or anything. We're just going to sit and eat, and I'll kind of keep track of the tables and stuff as people come and go, and just make sure that we get a good fellowship. So make sure that you click the Eventbrite link. You can go to our Instagram page, Single Saved in the City, which is in the description box. You can go to the Facebook page and click the Eventbrite link, or you could go to Eventbrite and you could type in Kingdom Girls Sisterhood Social. So make sure you RSVP for that. And like I said, you could bring a friend, 2 friends, your kids, whatever. It's going to be a good time. Also, join the newsletter. It goes out on the 1st and 15-ish. Sometimes I'm a day or 2 late of every month, but that's like our personal conversation. That's where I let you guys know what I'm up to, what's, coming down the pike. I am getting ready to launch my merch next month that I've been talking about for a couple of weeks now. So I'm going to be kind of teasing that, getting you guys' opinions and stuff like that in the newsletter. Like, what do you guys think of this? What do you guys think of that? And launching it that way. So that way you can be a part of the launch and the designing of the merch, because it's really not about me. I could launch something that I love all day, but if it's not something that you guys love, then it's like, what are we really doing? It's really about serving you guys. So make sure you join the newsletter so you can give your opinion. Yes, I'm glad you're coming, Alicia. Okay, because I need my girls. Okay, I need reinforcements, because what I don't want it to be is just me there like, okay, no one's here. It's just me or me and my sister. So glad that you're going to be there. It's going to be fun, y'all. Like, seriously, it's going to be a lot of fun. I went yesterday. Y'all will see the ad up later because it's still approving. Hopefully they approve it tonight. But I went to Andretti's yesterday to tape like a little promo ad to put up, and I'm actually going to share the bloopers from that taping and stuff later on. It's like, it was a lot of fun. They had like a whole event going on yesterday. So it's a good time, really, really good time. You decide what you want to pay to do. It's pay as you go. So if you want to just go and eat and chill and enjoy the atmosphere, that's on you. If you want to go and do just the go-karting, that's on you. Whatever you want to do, you decide. Just pay as you go. But and free to enter. But yeah, join the newsletter, description box down below. RSVP to the event. Share it with your friends. Like I said, bring someone with you. Like, you don't have to just come by yourself. It's all about us just getting out, having fun. We still outside. Okay, it's fall time, but we still outside. We still having fun around here, you know. And if you're not too far from Atlanta and you want to come, then go ahead and come. Also, keep an eye out for the merch. So even if you're not on the mailing list, just keep an eye out. I'll start teasing stuff this month. Lord willing, I would get one of the products in my hands in time to actually start showing it and stuff. But next month will be the official launch, Lord willing. Okay, keep me in prayer for that. And last but not least, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. There are a lot of good things and fun things coming up this month. I have a few interviewees, so it's going to be a good time. So anywho, we are going to go ahead and get started. And as people come in, they could just join the conversation. Don't forget, again, as you're watching this on the replay, like it, give it a thumbs up, share it out, subscribe. All of those things really matter. It might seem small to you, but it makes a huge difference for us YouTubers. So we really appreciate it. Now, why did I want to talk about this topic? So as I've been saying, I learned a lot in my own journey of like switching churches. I have not been in one church my whole life. I've been a member of, I want to say at least 3 or 4 churches in my whole life. And I'm about to be 34. And I've attended many churches. I've attended many different denominations in different parts of the world. I mean, I'm very experienced when it comes to different types of ways that church is done, different beliefs, things like that. And so this year, as you may or may not know, depending on, you know, how long you've been following my journey, my family resumed our church hunt because we're in the Atlanta area now. I'm originally from the DMV. I also lived a short stint in the Richmond area of Virginia. And, you know, when we moved down here, we wanted to join a church. Obviously, like, you want to get connected. I'm going to explain why all of those things are important. And when we moved here, we went through a lot. Y'all know the story. Or if you don't, I have a video on my channel, like, I think it's like Tea Time story about moving to Atlanta or something like that. But if you scroll back, you'll see it. We were homeless, long story short. And then the pandemic hit. And so obviously we started looking for churches, had to come to a halt. We were watching online church, but nothing beats actually being a part of a local body. Again, I'll get into that in a little bit. And so we started church hunting again this year, found a church that we have been attending and stuff. And we're not members of that church yet. That's still, the jury is still out on that, or the verdict is still out, whatever the saying is. You get what I'm trying to say. And so in this journey, especially now being older, being a mom, you know, looking for different things and just having different experiences to base things off of. Now I'm like, all right, these are the tips that I'm going to share in this video. These tips are things that I think will help anybody when they're either at a point where they're like, is it time for me to leave my church? Or, you know, they need help. Like maybe they already left their church and they're like, I need help on finding like a new church. Like, what should I be looking for? Maybe you're in between, maybe you're a combination of the two, what have you, whatever. But I want to share some tips with you guys. Now, I will preface this and say that this is not exhaustive. Like, there are many things to consider. There are many things that you can consider when you're looking for a new church. But this is just my opinion from my experience, my observations, and things like that. And just from other people that I've talked to that have been in similar situations of church hunting, whether it's now or at a different season of life. And so I'm just going to be authentic with y'all. I'm going to be candid. There could be some triggering points in this. So, you know, if you are triggered, I apologize, but I do want to be authentic and real with my advice. Hey, Yasmin, I'm glad that you're here. And yeah, so I just want to be honest and open and all that. So just know that there might be some triggering things said, but I'm not trying to trigger you. I'm just being blunt and to the point, you know, and authentic, because that is what helps us make wise decisions. So also, I will note that it's important to remember or to note for yourself, like, again, if you're new to the faith, that the ideal design of church attendance is for you at some point to become a church member, you know? So God didn't design for us to just be church hopping from one church to the next. You visit this church and then you go to the next church and then you go to the next church. Like, at some point in your journey, you need to be under a local body. No problem at all. I definitely meant to send a reminder earlier. And yeah. And so here we are, though. So I'm glad you made it. And so that's important to note, because some of the points that I'm going to make they all tie into you becoming a member. So when I say how to find a new church, I mean how to find a new church that you will become a member of, not just, okay, I don't like this church anymore. The praise and worship is boring to me. I'm going to go ahead and just, go visit another church. Like, no, what church are you going to become a member of? So I just wanted to say all of that because the Bible isn't verbatim on like, you need to be a part of one local church body. It doesn't say it in those verbatim words, but there are enough scriptural references to show that like it was designed for us to be under a spiritual leader, one set of spiritual leadership, and to do community with a body. Like, yes, we are the global international church as believers, but you need to be plugged into a local body and be accountable for a local body, and you need to be under and submitted to a spiritual leadership locally. So, all right, now that we got all the disclaimers, all that out the way, let's go ahead and hop into the signs that it's time to leave a church. I think I have 4 or 5, maybe even 6. I'm gonna try to get through them quickly, and then I have like 4 points on how to find a new church. So first and foremost, before I even get to the points, if you have moved away, like geographically moved far away from your church that you've been attending, you need to find a new church, period. Because again, for you to really be accountable to a local body of believers, a local body of leadership, you need to be accessible. So what accessible is, that's going to depend on you. Like for me, I feel like if I have to commute more than 30 to 45 minutes to get to a church, it's going to be very difficult for me to be plugged in. It's going to be very difficult for me to like really want to go and be engaged in the activities and stuff. That's me personally, just based on my life demands and stuff. Now I know people that travel an hour and a half to go to church and they're involved and they don't mind it. I mean, you have to figure out what works for you in your life, but be realistic. So if it's something where like if you know that commute's going to have you like, I don't even want to get plugged in, then you probably need to go ahead and find a new church. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not one of those people that says like you have to be 5 minutes away from your church, but you definitely need to be accessible. So yeah, just keep that in mind. If you are not accessible to your old church, go ahead and start finding a new church. And any realistic church leader would understand that. They would actually encourage you to go ahead and find a new church, because it's just going to impact your walk. So point number 1 of signs that it's time to leave your church. I know this is going to sound like a no-brainer, but they're not biblically sound. Now, maybe your church at one point started out being biblically sound. Maybe there's been a shift in leadership. Maybe the leadership is still the same, but they've changed. People change. They evolve in life, and sometimes it's not always for the best. Sometimes it's not always the wisest change or the most savory change, but things change, people change. And so if you've noticed that your church, if you've been there for a while especially, has started shifting away from being biblically sound, maybe their teachings are a little new agey, maybe they're a little counter biblical, maybe they're just straight up demonic, whatever the case may be. That's a sign clear as day that you need to leave. Okay, because any church that you're a part of that's a professing Christian church that says that we believe that the Bible is the inerrant, infallible word of God, they need to be biblically sound. Like, there's no ifs, ands, buts about that. And so there are certain things that, no matter what you might stand on, certain issues that I consider to be secondary, for some people they might be primary, there are certain things that are must for the Christian faith. Like, you have to believe in Jesus Christ and that he was fully man, fully God, that he came, died on the cross, didn't lose his godliness, but came and died on the cross, rose from the grave, and through him we have access to God and salvation. You have to believe in repentance. You have to believe in my opinion, because this is something that people argue about too, versus modalism versus the triune God and the Trinity. In my opinion, you have to believe in the Trinity, because I feel like the Bible is very clear on that. So if these are things that your church is not preaching, or like they're basically rebuttaling and saying like, that's up for discussion, or it's based on what you think, like, that's a red flag to me. So those are certain foundational things that go without saying. So if that's something that you see, I would say leave. Also, if your church is not only not biblically sound, but maybe it's shifting more to like a motivational speaker type church, because you'll be surprised how many preachers there are nowadays that really more so, like, they have the title of pastor, but they're really more so motivational speakers. That's fine. You could be a motivational speaker all day, but if you're a pastor, there are certain things that you need to be shepherding, you need to be teaching. Like, that's your responsibility. You have to answer to God for that. So, if you're noticing your church is more so motivation, self-help heavy, and it's not biblically based, it's not biblically rooted, you're not really looking at the scriptures, or the scriptures are just kind of like a fun, convenient aid that's pulled in from time to time, but it's not the basis and the foundation of the heart and culture of that church, then yeah, definitely time to go. So that's first and foremost. There also the Bible speaks very boldly on like what your leaders should be, how their characteristics should be. So I would say that too, but I think I'm going to get to a point about that as well. But yeah, like those fundamental things about the Christian faith, the virgin birth, Jesus dying on the cross, salvation through Jesus Christ, repentance, even things like spiritual warfare and sin and what, like those go without saying. So if you don't see that, hightail it up out of there, sis. Get up out of there. Get up out of there. Lord knows we need to nail down the church, home, and community. Yeah, like we're kind of still in the hunt ourselves. We haven't officially become members. We're in prayer about whether long term, if it's a good move for us. But yeah, I feel you, because relocating makes it a lot harder too. We've been going to one but aren't going to join because it'll be over an hour away from when we move. Yeah, see, and so that's wise that you guys are doing that, in my opinion, because then you join and then it's like, oh man, like you don't want to join and then you're just church hopping. We're more connected at our home in Nashville than the one we've been going to here. That's good though. At least and I was gonna say that too later on, but I'll go ahead and say it now in case I forget. Like in the interim, when you're looking for a church home, especially for my people out there who have relocated, like me, Yasmin, it's okay to find like pockets of believers that you could join forces with and do life with, and it's okay to still be connected to your old church. Just know that again, at some point, like the rubber's gonna have to meet the road and you join, but sometimes it takes a while, because I also don't want you guys to rush, and I'm gonna get to that in one of my later points. I just know that our pastor is still my shepherd. Yeah, same, so it's just like it's hard to do that. Now my old pastor in Maryland, he's one that I'm like, yeah, like I know for a fact he's definitely still my shepherd. He fortunately has a global church, the way he set it up. My family and I are still just deciding, like, is that for us in the long term or not? So, there, thankfully with technology and stuff nowadays, there are ways that you can still plug in, because if your church is like my old church in Maryland, they have that global church and then they have local bodies within that global church. So it's like, it's a global virtual church, but in your city, they might have hubs or, meetups and things like that, to where you could do life with people, but you're all under that one body, if that makes sense. So technology and things like that definitely help nowadays versus in the past. So those are all things that might look unconventional. Your church might look unconventional. They might not have a steady building. That's a new thing I'm seeing a lot too, where churches don't own a building. They just meet in a gym, or they meet in another church's building in the afternoon or something, but they don't have the overhead of their own building. So church looks different in some instances because they can't have like standing ministries in some cases and things like that. And so it looks more fluid. It looks a little bit more maybe even nomadic, for lack of better terms. But there's so many ways you could do it, right? We're looking for a community right now. We'll look for a church to join when we move. Yes, I definitely agree. Our church in Nashville is global as well, but they don't have a hub here. Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's a really more common thing to see. So I would say for those of you watching to keep that in mind too. Maybe if your church is big enough that they have an international presence, global presence, see if they have a local hub, or see if you could start a local hub. I know with my church in Maryland, you could start a local hub, which is something my family and I are talking about possibly doing too, because we just love that pastor so much. Like we've been following him and under his leadership, obviously before we got to our church in Virginia, for over 10 years, and we just love that church so much. We love it so much. Our church in Virginia is more small and intimate. So, it would be pretty much impossible to do anything connected to them down here, but we love that church too. That's a church that helped me a lot when I was pregnant. So sign number 2, that it's time for you to leave your church. You are no longer able to submit to leadership. The Bible is very clear about submission to authority in any area of life, but particularly when it comes to the church, and how we're supposed to function as a local body. So one verse that comes to mind for me is Hebrews 13:17, where it basically says, like, obey your spiritual leaders because it's their job to watch over your souls. And they have to make an account to God for that, like I said earlier. And so I know the words like obey and submit in today's culture is like, oh my gosh, like it's like you're cursing, like that. It's a hard word, or those are hard words to hear. When you hear obey, you think like automatically when we hear obey, we unfortunately link it to abuse. And I can understand why, because unfortunately a lot of people in positions of authority, not even just in the church, but in this case we're talking about the church, have abused their authority to the point where people are scared to obey, because it's like, well, are you going to take advantage of my submission? And same thing with the word submit. We hear the word submit and we automatically think, oh, abuse, control, because there have been cases of people that abuse their authority and their titles, their positions in the body of Christ or whatever. And so now people are tainted and jaded when it comes to those words. But don't be deceived. God designed for us to be able to submit in various areas of life, and church is included in that. And there's a reason for that. For one, there are certain gifts and that position of pastor or minister, reverend, whatever you call it, but in the Bible, it's typically referred to as pastor. It's any of those positions, pastor, apostle, whatever, bishop, they're all positions where people are called. And so there's a special anointing that comes with those positions that I'm not saying special anointing in the case of like they're better than us, because that's not the case. And I actually get to that later, I think, in one of my points. It's not a superiority thing, but it's the fact that they're anointed for that position. 9 times out of 10, people in those positions were truly called. Like that wasn't something that they were like, from a little kid, I'm going to be a bishop one day, I'm going to be an apostle. Like I don't think I ever met anybody in that position that was like, yeah, I wanted to do this since I was a little kid. I don't think I've ever met someone like that. They might have figured out earlier in life, maybe as a teenager versus like in their 20s, 30s, or 40s. But typically it was a situation where they were called. God calls people to these type of positions. He calls people to be shepherds, to lead, and so on and so forth. And so with that comes a special level of, like I said, anointing, discernment, foresight, skill, strategy, tactics, and whatnot to be able to lead a flock. And so if you can't submit to the shepherd, let's just say that you can't submit to the shepherd, it's going to be very hard for you to be a part of that body. It's almost like, imagine you're actually a sheep, right? And you have a shepherd and the flock is going, down the valley, up the mountain, whatever, and you are constantly just going astray. You're slowing up the procession and the progress of the entire flock, because now the shepherd has to leave the 99 to come for the one. And while that is great in certain instances, and while that is needed in certain instances, and Jesus is the ultimate shepherd who came for the one and left the 99, when you have to, as a leader, constantly leave the work and the mission to go get this person, get them together, constantly like you're fighting and you're not seeing eye to eye, and there's a lot of contention and stuff, it just really causes a lot of division in the church, And so maybe you aren't able to submit because you don't agree with the vision or the mission of the church. I would ask yourself these things. Like, if you find that you're having trouble submitting, I would ask yourself, even before that, I would ask yourself, do I have a problem with submission in general in my life? Do I have a problem with authority? Because I'm going to be honest and transparent with y'all. When I was younger, and even if I'm left alone in my flesh now, I don't like authority. I'm going to be completely real with y'all. When I say I'm a free spirit, I mean that through and through. I don't want nobody telling me what to do. I don't want nobody watching over me all the time. I don't want none of that. It wasn't until I matured in my faith throughout my 20s that I realized the blessing of submission and having people that can mentor you and lead you and pour into you and stuff like that. And it's not always a bad thing. I had to realize that my fear and my disdain for submission was attached to trauma that I had witnessed. I don't think I personally went through it myself, but I definitely had witnessed it. And so once I went through that healing and I realized that and I pinpointed it, now it's not so hard for me to submit. And I actually enjoy it in a lot of aspects because I am a grab the bull by the horns type of woman. I'm a very dominant person. And so it's easy for me to take charge, but I enjoy being in the passenger seat. I enjoy someone else being like, hey, you should do this. Have you thought about that? This, or the third, whether it's in church, whether it's in, not so much my business. My business, I definitely like to have autonomy, but maybe church, I don't mind when I was working in certain work instances, and definitely in relationships. It's like, I don't want to have to be the leader. So, in this case, bringing it back to church, ask yourself, do I have a problem with authority and submission in general? If that's the case, that's something that you need to pray about. You need to work on. You probably might need to get therapy and work through a healing journey on that, because there's typically something attached to that. Once you realize, okay, maybe it's not that, or you do realize it's that and you work through it, now you have to ask yourself, when it comes to the church, do I not agree with the vision and the mission of the church? Whether it's the short-term or long-term vision and mission. Because if you don't agree with it, it's going to be hard to submit to it. You really can't go along with something you don't agree with. Even in a marriage, it's hard to do that, but you're bound. In a marriage, like that's not something to get divorced off of because you disagree with what your spouse, the direction your spouse is going in, unless obviously it's detrimental and not safe. But other than that, if you don't agree with the church's mission and vision, it's going to be very, very, very difficult for you to submit and to go along with the vision and to not cause division. Also, maybe you might disagree with the pastor's teachings, which I'm going to dive more into later, because if you don't agree with that, that's going to be very hard to submit. Maybe you have witnessed some things that are morally wrong that the leadership has endorsed or participated in. And so when you witness those things, now you're like, yeah, I don't know if I could submit to you because the way you handle that situation or what I witnessed you doing with the church funds or whatever, it's going to be very hard for you to submit. Maybe it could be something where, I don't know, there is just a conflict of personalities. Now, I will say with the personality part, be mindful, but maybe personalities and just energies between y'all. I know the word energy too in the faith could be a red flag, but in this case, I can't think of how else to describe it, but energies don't match. When I was growing up, my parents always told me sometimes your spirit just takes to somebody and you don't know why you and that person meet and it's boom, instant connection and you just click. And it's you don't even mind them coming in and mentoring you and doing this and doing that and whatnot. And then other people, it's no matter how you try, it's just friction, it's contention. It's and there's nothing that they did. It's just you just don't get along with them, And so if that's the case, that can be something that makes it hard to submit, especially depending on church size, church culture, how engaged you're going to be with the leadership or the leader, So these are all things to consider. But I will say, before you leave altogether, when it comes to not being able to submit, I will preface and say, these are all things you need to observe over time. So except for, if you have a problem with submission, because you probably would have already had a hunch about that before, but the personality part, the church mission and vision, the teachings and stuff, you're going to have to observe that over time. And when you observe it over time, ask yourself the questions, but then also, see if you could bring up some of these things to leadership. I know it's scary sometimes to approach leadership on stuff, but we have to understand as believers, we have the authority to approach leadership because they're no better than us. Yes, they're in a position of authority over our lives as far as spiritual leaders, but that doesn't mean that you can't send them an email or, again, depending on church size, maybe you can actually approach them and just be like, hey, these are some concerns that I'm having, some problems I'm having, can we set up a meeting time to talk? Once we take the leadership of churches off the pedestal that we often place them on, we humanize them again, and we can really get past a lot of these obstacles with conversations, meetings, whatever, counseling, therapy, whatever the case may be. So I would say take it to your leadership, and if you can't get through to them even still with all of these things, then it's probably time to leave. I thought about looking into creating a local hub, but I hope God lets me pass on that. Honestly, Yasmin, I feel like you will be good at that. I really do. You have the gift of leading community. So I know you're praying against it, but I'm gonna be praying. I will be praying that God blesses you to start a hub in Austin. Hey, Jasmine, I'm always glad when you could join, sis. And thank you. I definitely have been sitting on this topic for a while, so I'm glad to be able to say it. My girls, Yasmin and Jasmine. Yas and Jazz are in the chat. I know, just I was just talking about causing division, and here I am praying against your heart's desires. But I really feel like you would make an impact in Austin and the surrounding areas if you start a hub. But now that you know that I'm praying about it, at least I'm honest. So if God opens that door, go ahead and say thank you to him for my for my prayers. So point number 3, or sign number 3, of signs that it might be time to leave your church: lack of community. So the Christian walk wasn't meant to be done alone. And again, the Bible doesn't say verbatim, do not walk your Christian journey alone, but there's enough scriptures that show you got to have community around you. So love you too, sis. And so some of the verses and scriptures that come to mind when I think of doing life as a Christian community are 1 Thessalonians 5:11, Hebrews 10:25, and Acts 2:42. I was actually in the book of Acts earlier, and I was like, yep, the book of Acts chapter 2 is very detailed about doing community. If you want to look up those scriptures, you can. Again, 1 Thessalonians 5:11, Hebrews 10:25, Acts 2:42, and there are so many others, but the gist of the scriptures in the Bible that I can think of now that talk or allude to doing community, having community as a Christian, the main reasons for that are obviously for us to have fellowship, because just the way God created us in general, we're made to do life with humans. That's why during the pandemic, a lot of people literally got physically sick. Even if they didn't get, the Rona, they got physically sick because it's just like you're in the house and you don't have that community that you used to have and stuff. But we're made to do life with people, and also to encourage each other and to sharpen one another, because a lot of times we can be self-righteous. Hey Leslie, I'm glad that you're here. I know I haven't seen you in a while, but I'm so glad you're in the chat. We can be self-righteous. We can feel like, well, there's nothing wrong in my walk. I'm good. I don't need no correction, this, that, the third. And mind you, correction, I feel, is best when it comes from people that know you. Like I don't want personally, or I'm not going to receive as well a random person coming up to me like, oh, you should do this, that, or that, like, because you don't really understand me in a deeper level. You're just seeing surface, so you don't know what else could have been attached to that action or whatever, unless it's just plain as day wrong. But that all matters in doing community, because you build these connections and people understand the gravity and all the implications of your life and stuff. And so when it comes to either correction, sharpening, encouraging, uplifting, motivating, whatever, you're able to do it better because you have a better sense of that person. And so in order for these things to occur, you got to have community. So if you've been attending your church for a while, a substantial amount of time, it's got to be more than like a month or two. It's got to be something where you've been there for a good while. Like I would say at least 3 to 4 months, especially if you've been going faithfully and you've been attending more than Sunday service. And anything longer than that, if you've been going and you just don't have community, it might be time to leave your church. Now, again, before you just up and leave and you say, oh, I don't have community, I'm out of here, you got to ask yourself some things. So first and foremost, ask yourself, are you showing yourself friendly? Because to make friends, you got to show yourself friendly. So are you sticking around after service? Because that's something that I've noticed for many years now. And maybe it's just our culture here in the States. Maybe it's just life, I don't know. But people dip out even before church is really done. Like the pastor or whoever is coming up to do the benediction and people already grabbing bags and walking out. And it's like, how am I going to meet you? Like, it's really weird. It's really hard. So this is something I feel like we all should be doing more of. Because I even said this in my Church Cliques Have to Stop video. I really feel all of us should be lingering a little bit more. I'm not saying you got to linger for another hour, 2 hours and be cleaning up, chairs and all that, unless that is part of your ministerial duties or whatever, or your, your serving duties. But definitely stick around for a few minutes. I think churches, because this is something I've been seeing more recently too. And I was saying the last 5 to 10 years, I've seen this occur more. Churches having a cafe. And I love that because it is so much easier to get to know someone over a cup of coffee or over eating a blueberry muffin or a scone or something. Like, it's like it breaks the walls down, because it's like we're both standing in this line waiting for our beverage or our snack or what have you. And so I can go ahead and just talk to you, and I don't have to feel weird for bolting across the sanctuary and be like, hey, I'm so-and-so. Hey, Bria, I haven't seen you in so long, sis. How are you? And thank you for joining in. But yeah, so it's like, ask yourself, have you shown yourself friendly? Have you lingered after service? If there is a cafe or a place where you can kind of huddle together or what have you gone there? Maybe just grab a snack, stick around. I know the church that I've been to, the cafe usually has tables, even if it's standing tables. It's places where you can stand or sit and make yourself available. Have you said hi to someone in the line? Compliment them, maybe. Like, I love that dress. Great word today. What did you like about, something like that? Have you done that? If you have done that, another thing to ask yourself is, have you joined any small groups or ministries or serving groups? Not every church has small groups. The church I'm attending now doesn't have small groups, which is one thing I miss, because my church in Virginia and my church in Maryland that I talked about earlier both have small groups, and I stan small groups. I can't talk enough about how much small groups really forge friendships, because when I think back on it, even now, all my best and closest and most authentic church friendships have stemmed from small groups. It's just easier when it's 10 people in a room or 8 people or 12 people versus 50, 60, 100 people, at a Bible study. It's just easier. So, and it made it easier to do life, because in a smaller group setting, 2 people share more vulnerably. So I know in my church in Virginia, I was pregnant when I joined the church. And so obviously I was pregnant when I joined the small group, and we bonded so much because they were walking with me through my pregnancy. They saw Christian fresh out the hospital. They were the first people to see him outside of my family. You know, they've seen him grow. Like it makes things more intimate. And when I was struggling with things in my pregnancy, there were things I told them that I didn't tell the whole church, you know, or even some of the elders. I told the elders that led that small group and the people there, but the whole church body can't say, oh, I knew this or that or the third. And so it made us closer together, because then maybe another mom in the group who was also pregnant, which there was another mom who was pregnant, she could say like, wow, like I was struggling with that too. You know, we were able to see similarities and just help each other out and stuff. So I would ask you to ask yourself that second question. The next question, maybe you have stuck around after church and services and stuff. Maybe you have joined a small group or a serving team. And I say ministries too, because also when you serve in ministry, you get to know people on a different level. Because when I was serving, my church in Virginia didn't have ministries at the time. Now they have more ministries. But even still, they had a church board through Google. It was like a Google group, and everybody in the church was in there. So no matter what you needed, whether it was like, hey, I need a ride to the train station today, I need, you know, some help around the house. Does anyone have, you know, an extra booster seat I could borrow? Anything that you had that you needed help with or whatever, you could put in the church board. And so it basically became like one big church ministry. Like we didn't have set ministries, but it's like you're serving in this way, you're serving in that way. And so that helped. But then also, you know, being a part of ministries in my churches in Maryland and stuff, like when I was singing in the choir and whatnot, you get to know people on a deeper level because you're showing up outside of just church service. You're showing up to practice. You're showing up to do different things together. Maybe you guys are maybe even taking ministry trips together and stuff like that. So that helps. Now, if you stuck around after service, showing yourself friendly, join small groups and/or ministries, still don't have the connection, the next thing I will ask is, are you attending events outside of Sunday service? So you have Bible study, midweek service, whatever your church might call it. Are you going to that? If they have workshops, if they have in-depth Bible studies, you know, like Bible courses or whatever, if they have seminars, if they have concerts, whatever, plays, and anything, are you going to those things? Because those are also opportunities to get to know people more, because you're seeing them in a different light. It's not just us coming to worship and stuff. It's like us actually fellowshipping, doing stuff. If they have a movie night, bowling night, are you going to those things? You know, if you're doing all of these things and still it's not working, then the last thing I would ask is, have you like made sure you're engaging outside of church with those people? So maybe you met someone and you guys always see each other around the church, but you haven't asked for their number yet. You know, you haven't asked for maybe an Instagram if you don't want to just hand out your number. Like me, I'm in a season of life where I'm like, oh, you're not getting my number just like that, because I done been through the fire with that. So I'll give you my Instagram or my Facebook Messenger, but I'm on there enough where you can reach me, you know. But it's like, have you exchanged contact information where you can be like, hey, I'm, you know, at the Starbucks and such. You want to meet me there? You know, or hey, on Friday I got some free time. You want to meet up, bring the kids or something like that? Like something, you know, if you have done that and it's still not working, and you've done all the things I listed and it's still not working, it could be a sign that it's time to leave your church. Because if you're not able to find, let me add, genuine and authentic community, okay? Because you don't just want community. You don't want just people in your face saying hi and playing church. You want authentic, genuine community. Like, let me be able to peel back some layers. Let me be myself around you. Let me do what I got to do as a person to be a friend, and you do what you got to do as a person to be a friend. And let's be real about that and actually have community, because that's when you get those real deep relationships that stand the test of time and transcend, you know, location or whatever. So definitely authentic, genuine community, because you could have community and they can be fake. That's something that I've started noticing as I've been like back on my church hunt and stuff. People are cool with you up until a certain point, you know, or it's very churchy. It's very like, praise the Lord, saints, you know, and it's just, and it's like, yes, praise the Lord. But at the same time, I want to be authentic with you. I want to be real and raw and honest and not feel like I'm constantly on this like judging block or what have you. So if you've done all of that and you still don't have genuine, authentic community, then that might just not be the body that is fit for you. And that's okay. Like sometimes people, you know, you got two people go to the same church. One person jumps right in and fits right in, and the other person is just like, it just is not a good fit, you know, even though this isn't a churchy example. But I was watching a documentary about Destiny's Child and like all the changes they went through over the years and stuff. And, you know, those of us who are Destiny's Child fans, back in the day. We know they went through a lot. So when they transitioned from having Latavia and Latoya, and then they had Farrah and Michelle, and then Farrah left and it was just Michelle. One of the reasons why Farrah said she left is because she felt like she just was not a good fit for the group. She was like, Michelle joined and it was like, it just worked, you know. Sometimes, again, like my parents said, your spirit just takes, but for her it was like no matter what, it just wasn't a good fit, and that's okay. Just find another body, you know, because sometimes you feel like you got to be there because the church got so much hype about it, or you know, it's so much going on. You're like, well, I don't want to leave, but if it's not a good fit and you don't have community, what's the point? Because really at the end of the day, all the lights, camera, action, ritz and glitz aside, it's for you to be sharpened as a believer, and you can't do that without genuine community. So it's best for you to be at a church where you really can get that versus just being at a church because saying you go to that church would be like something people are like all hooting and hollering about or whatever. So the next point or sign that it's time to leave your church. Oh, y'all talking in the chat for real. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Was this an app? Oh no, it was just a Google group. So I think if you go to Google under like an email, because our church had an email, which is like drbc@gmail.com or something. I think like how you can create Google Docs and stuff. I think that's how you create the group. But don't quote me. But it was like that basically in the Google suite, and it was so helpful. Like I'm still a part of that Google chat. I've been told them like, hey, you can take me off, and they still got me on it. But they don't play about me and my family. They're like, no, you're staying on here until we know you're settled somewhere else. All is well on my end. Oh, good. Glad y'all catching up and everything. I understand I'm not learning to give my number. I know, like, sis, I gotta catch you up on that because I've been going through the fire this year with that. Yes, okay. Meg is very stingy about those kind of things. Rightfully so. You gotta protect your space, protect your energy, because these people out here are crazy sometimes. And then you're all wrapped up in stuff that you really have no business being wrapped up in. Hey, Michelle, I'm glad that you're here. Yes, definitely. And if you need help, I could definitely like help you out because I know what it's supposed to look like. I just haven't been involved in the setting up, but I love it. Absolutely love it. Okay, she don't play about that at all. So sign number 4 is you strongly disagree with the church's doctrine and teaching. So I alluded to this in point number 1 about you, or 2, I mean, about if you can't submit to leadership. This is one of the reasons why you might not be able to submit to leadership because you disagree with the church's doctrine and teachings. Now, like I said, it goes hand in hand with submitting to leadership, but it can be extremely difficult to pinpoint this if you don't understand your doctrinal beliefs. So I do want to put that disclaimer out before I dive into more of this point, because it's important as believers that we understand why we believe what we believe. I feel like a lot of us are told what to believe, but we never go through really our own deconstruction process of like, why do I believe this? Like, I've been taught this my whole life, but why do I believe it? Where is it in the Bible? Or how did we get to this thought? Why does it matter? Like, so spend some time, if you haven't. And this is something you're going to do for the rest of your life. So I'm not saying you got to figure this out before 2023 or before you hit 45, like, you know, whatever. Like it's a constant journey because your ideas change, your beliefs change, et cetera, et cetera. But always kind of just make it a habit, excuse me, to just ask yourself, like, why do I believe what I believe? And where do I stand in these beliefs? Like, is this a primary issue for me? Is this a secondary issue? Is this tertiary? Like, primary to me is an issue where you're like, if the church does not agree with that, you're out. Like, this is something you're not debating about. You're very strongly passionate about it. Secondary to me is something where you're like, I believe in it, you know, but at the same time, I'm not going to like excommunicate myself from a church or from a body of believers because of it, you know. And tertiary is like, this is a belief of mine, but honestly, it's like one of those gray area things where it's like, honestly, who really knows? Like eschatology type stuff for me, end times and whatnot. Those are all tertiary because at the end of the day, we're not in the end times yet. You know, none of us have died and gone to heaven and can come back and say, this is what it really looks like. Like, you know, so for me, I'm not going to like beef with the church, leadership, other people in the body because we don't agree on, you know, what the archangel looked like and have, like, you know, we haven't seen it. So it's just, it's like, whatever, like you have your belief, I have my belief, it is what it is. But I wanted to say that just so you guys understand. So it's also going to be very difficult for you to attend and receive the teachings of the teachings and shepherding of the leaders if you don't agree with their teachings and their doctrine, because in your mind they're talking and you're just rebutting everything that they say. You're like, nope, don't agree with that. Nope, that's wrong. Nope, you're nope. Like, and then you're just sitting there disgruntled and like uncomfortable. And, you're wondering why everyone is like, yes, amen. That was a word, preach, preacher. And you're just like, no, it wasn't a word. That's not right. So definitely figure out where you stand on it. If you find that you're sitting in the congregation, you're attending stuff, you're at Sunday service, and you just disagree more than you agree, I would personally say that's a sign it's time to go. Because the thing is, like, if you stick around, not only are you going to be disgruntled, not only is it going to affect your submission to leadership in the way that God designed for it, but if you stay long enough and you get plugged in enough, let's say you start getting that community at that church, people talk, things come up like, oh, that was a great word. And, oh, pastor so-and-so, bishop so-and-so was so anointed and woo, woo, woo. You're going to start to get irritated. And it's not abnormal for us as humans to want to talk about these things with other people in the body. And while you do want open, honest relationship, you also don't want to cause discord and division in the church, because the Bible speaks against that as well. So you want to be careful that you're not going in, like, oh, they're wrong and this and that. And now you're causing other people to look at leadership in a certain type of way. All you can do, honestly, in this kind of thing is, again, approach leadership. So like I said earlier, like, we got to do better as a collective body around the world, like not putting leaders on a pedestal, because a lot of times we do that and then we just teach them like they're treat them, like they're infallible and like they're just gods themselves. And it's like, no, you could approach them. So if you don't agree with the church's doctrine, and maybe in this, oftentimes it's going to be something that you've been attending for a while, and then you realize somewhere along the way, like, oh, wait a minute, I don't agree with this. Because not every church's website is super open about their doctrine on many issues. They just give you, their statement of beliefs, rightfully so. There's only so much you can really put on a website. So you're going to have to go, you're going to have to talk to leadership. I would suggest when you go to a church, sooner rather than later, if you can reach someone who is part of the leadership team, it doesn't have to be the senior pastor, but just an elder, somebody that can sit with you and kind of have these discussions like, what does the church believe about this? What does the church believe about that? If you can't get them, it's like pretty soon after you get there, but you observe things over time, like make note of these things so that way you can approach them with your notes and like, these are my points of contention of what you guys are teaching, and this is why I feel like it's inaccurate, and see if they'll meet with you and like pinpoint how did you guys get to this from the Bible? Because from what I understand and my teachings and just my discernment, this is not biblical. So I need to see how you guys got to this. I need to see like, why do you believe this? Why do you teach that? And if they're willing to discuss it with you, show you, and after prayer and discernment, you're like, okay, I can rest assured I can still come to this church, then I wouldn't leave. But if after you do all that, if you even get to, because some churches, honestly, leadership will not meet with you, but I say always give it a shot. You never know until you try. But if they don't meet with you, or they meet with you and afterwards you're like, I still don't see it, and you still don't have a piece about it, you're not convicted otherwise of, against your convictions, I would say go ahead and leave, because it's just going to open you up to start to cause division, be disgruntled, not be able to submit. And then it's just going to be a snowball effect, and it's going to affect the culture and the unity of that church. And at the end of the day, we should always be striving for unity. If you can't add to the unity of the atmosphere, it's best you just separate and find some place that aligns with you better. Hey, Delisa, I'm glad you're here. So yeah, I would say that. Also, I'm trying to think. I feel like I wanted to say something else about that point. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember, but yeah, basically that's how I would do it. And again, it's the reason why I keep saying it's important to know what you believe, because it might be a tertiary issue, or it might be secondary, it might be primary. Like I said, if I go to a church and because I don't have any really hard stances when it comes to eschatology, end times, things about heaven, and such, and so on and so forth. But if I go to a church, let's say like, let's say I'm a-mill versus pre-trib. That's, eschatology for end times, whether we're in the 1,000 years haven't come yet, whatever. Let's say I'm a-mill, the church is pre-trib. I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, y'all aren't a-mill, I'm gone. Like, to me, it's just not that deep, because like I said, we're not there yet. Like, who knows? Who really knows? We can discern, we can read the word, we can have our opinions and our convictions, but I'm not going to like excommunicate from the church because of that. To me, a secondary issue would be like how the church handles speaking in tongues, and spiritual warfare and demonic attacks. Some churches don't believe in the prophetic gifts anymore. They don't believe in apostolic gifts. I've been a part of churches like that. Some churches believe it, and some churches, that's their holy grail. It's like, if you don't have the gift of tongues, you're not saved. For me, I don't believe in that, but I don't believe like, tongues is a sign of salvation, but I do believe it is as a gift. I'm just on here spilling all my doctrinal beliefs. Hopefully we don't start beefing, like it's all love. I'm just being real with y'all. But for me, if I go to a church that doesn't believe in it, I can be okay as long as the other more primary issues, like I said, repentance, regeneration, how to get to salvation, and so on, is on point and it's biblically based. And I personally prefer churches that are exhaustive in their biblical teaching. So I don't really like churches that just kind of stay at the surface or stay with what they call listicle sermons, where it's just all lists and you don't really dive in. Like, I want to dive in, like, tell me the history, tell me the meat and potatoes, tell me who's speaking, why they're speaking, how they got there, what God was doing. Like, I want to know all of that, So as long as the primary stuff is on point, stuff like the prophetic and apostolic gifts, whether you observe it or not, to me, depending on the primary, I can probably get around that, So, but I know where I stand on certain things. So that's why I said you guys have to figure that out for yourself and move accordingly. Now, next point or sign that it's time to leave your church: toxic church culture. Okay, so in the future, at some point, probably not this year, unless I can squeeze it in, but at some point, I will talk more about this in more depth. But you may ask, what is toxic church culture? Say that 3 times fast. So some things that I think about is your church places a strong emphasis on serving, attending, and being involved in that particular church to the point where it is literally your whole life. You have no time to do anything else. You can't go anywhere else. You can't talk to nobody else. If you are seen doing anything else, then you are almost seen as like lesser than in the faith. So maybe your church has events like 4 times a week. You're expected to be at the church 4 times a week before the event starts, after the event ends. And if you, heaven forbid, miss one event a week, it's like, oh, you're falling away, you're going apostate. Like, they start looking at you like, oh, you're about to, just leave the faith altogether. You don't believe in Christ anymore. And it's this maybe it's verbalized, maybe it's unspoken, but it's this weight and this energy and this culture of like, you gotta be here, you gotta keep pressing in. You can't go nowhere, you can't do nothing. Like, if you do, then you're not serious. So that's a sign of toxic church culture. Another sign to think about is your church leadership is too involved, incredibly too involved in your personal life and decisions. And nothing is wrong with shepherding, nothing is wrong with mentoring and all of that. But if every little decision I make has to be run by you and dictated by leadership, or like other people in the church have to have a say in it and all that, then I'm like, that's toxic. Like, there has to be some barriers there, some privacy, and so on and so forth. The next point I could think about for toxic church culture is the leadership of your church put on a pedestal, like I've been saying through this whole talk. They are almost seen as gods, like they are never wrong. And heaven forbid you disagree with leadership. Now you are seen as the black sheep, the rebel, the wolf in the pack, and people are looking at you like you are 2 seconds from causing a revolution in the church against leadership. So that's toxic. If your leadership is there's nothing wrong with honoring leadership. There's nothing wrong with admiring them. But if they're put on such a high pedestal that, let's say you disagree with the way that they handle the situation, or you disagree with the point that they made, and you might express that with a friend you have at church, and they're just like, oh, no, we can't disagree. Like, everything that they do, everything they say is right because they are pastor, they are reverend, they are apostle, they're bishop, they're never wrong. No, that's honestly, I would say, sacrilegious, because you're putting them on a same level as God. Like, there's only one person that's walked this earth that's been perfect, and that's Jesus. Anybody else falls short, period. I don't care how long you've been in ministry. So, now if I'm being divisive, that's a different story, but people are allowed to disagree. That's fine. That's normal. Thank you, Bree. I'm glad you're enjoying it. And I'm so sorry that you've experienced a lot of that. I've experienced and witnessed some myself. And that's why I was like, I got to come on here and talk about this, and I have someone coming at the end of this month. She's in England. She's going to share more about church abuse and spiritual hurt. So I'm really excited about that. But another sign toxic church culture is you have to play politics, so in order for you to be seen or heard, or suggestions to be listened to in any way, shape, or form, you got to basically play the game. Like, there's a lot of clear indications of nepotism, favoritism. You basically got to brown nose your way in order to be acknowledged in any way, shape, or form. And I get it. You're not going to take everybody, every Tom, Dick, and Harry suggestions when they just breeze in the church and breeze out. But if I've been there, no problem, Michelle, I'm glad you're still here. If I've been there, I've been attending, I've been observing long enough, I shouldn't have to basically like suck up or be a favorite to be heard or be seen or whatever. Because sometimes you really have a good suggestion, but it's like, because you're not one of them, they don't listen. So also, if things are accomplished differently in private than they say in public. So maybe in public, they're like, oh yeah, we do this, we do that. Like we provided 1,000 kids in the city with school supplies, with, you know, your tithes and your offerings. We were able to do it. But really, they were taking your tithes and offerings to go on trips to Vegas, on yacht parties, and they were embezzling money with shady business to fund these. Like, you know, like, and that's an extreme example, but, you know, it's like, it's not adding up. They say one thing in public and they say and act one way in public, but as soon as the lights and cameras go off and Sunday service is done, they're completely different. They act different. They live different. Like, morals are different, everything. And they do some shady things to accomplish it. And I'm sad to say I've seen that more than I would like to. Not thankfully, not in any of my church that I've gone to, but just like friends of mine and stuff. Just like the scandal and the stuff that goes on behind the scenes to get money or to get status or whatever. And another sign too of toxic church is cliques or a way of life. Like, again, that us versus them mentality and energy. And it could be like, oh, we serve, we're in leadership, you know, we've been here first and we are better than you guys because you don't serve, you're not in leadership, you don't sing, you don't, you know, do children's church or whatever. Like, that's all toxic. So honestly, if you see anything that I listed, and there's so many more, like I said, I'll do a more detailed video in the future. But if you see anything I said, or you were even thinking of stuff, I would just honestly leave. I know for the other points I said, approach leadership on it. You can if you want with this one, but honestly, from my experience, when you approach leadership in it, it just does not work because a lot of times they are the ones kind of spearheading the toxicity, or they're in the center of it and they turn a blind eye to it so much that it's like they don't even really want to say anything because their hands are too much in the pot. Their hands are too dirty from it. So, I mean, you can try. It never hurts to try, but I feel like I would just leave if I notice any of this stuff. Because it's very hard to convince people of toxicity when they're in the midst of it. They feel like, no, I'm good. You know, I didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing wrong here. So that's one point I would just leave. But it's up to you. It's never hurts to approach leadership. The last sign of it's time to leave your church before I tell you how to find a new church is unchecked spiritual abuse. So again, like I said, we have a lady coming on at the end of the month that's going to really dive into this, and I'm really excited for her to share her knowledge and stuff. So make sure you're here that last Thursday. It's going to be earlier because she's in England, so we got to do it earlier. But it's going to be a lot of information shared and just insight. But if your church has spiritual abuse, a culture of abuse or manipulation of any form, whether it's financial, physical, emotional, obviously spiritual, and it's never checked or rectified by the leaders, it's time to leave your church. So spiritual abuse has many different definitions, but I found a definition on Alan Parr's channel that I really like because it summed it up really well. And it said spiritual abuse is when a spiritual leader uses their authority, charisma, position, and persuasion to manipulate those who follow them for their advantage and to the followers' detriment. I thought that was really good because it really sums it up well. It's like when they literally know, like, okay, I'm a leader here. I can get this person to do what I want them to do. I can manipulate this situation to get what I want out of it because they're taking advantage of the fact that a lot of times we revere these people in positions of authority and power, and, you know, we're called to submit to them. And that's why I said earlier, like, I know the words obey and submit can be triggering for some people because it's like, like I've done that before and someone took advantage of it and they abused it. I get it. You know, it's not easy, unfortunately, in this world to do that because we live in a fallen world. And no matter how much someone might be anointed for a certain position or whatever, we still have our sleazy, greasy, grimy flesh side of us that will take advantage of people if given the opportunity or a situation or whatever. So it's very hard to balance that as you move up in power and authority, but it's very hard to sometimes escape it, being the person that has to submit or whatever the case may be. So forms of spiritual abuse might appear like a leader, let's say like someone did something in the church the leader doesn't agree with, or maybe that upset them. And instead of approaching that person behind the scenes, they make a public spectacle of them on a Sunday morning. And that can be an overt public spectacle where they're like, oh, come on stage and let's talk in front of everybody about what you did, and I'm gonna belittle you in front of this crowd. Or it could be shade. Okay, pastors be throwing so much shade sometimes in their sermons, and it's like, you know, like those of us that are in the church and know who you're talking about, but they throw shade during the sermon. They say little slick side comments and stuff like that. And those who know, and the person's being humiliated and embarrassed publicly, but they can't do anything about it because that's the senior pastor, or that's the leader or whoever. And so you're just sitting there taking it while you're being broken down spiritually. Like your spirit is being broken down and your mind and your emotions and stuff are being broken down, And so that's one example. I'm trying to think of another example of spiritual abuse. Oh, manipulating scripture. That is common. Manipulating scripture to get what they want out of you. Sadly, I hate to say this, but it's the truth. This is done often during the offering and tithe part of the service. Now, don't hear that and run with it and be like, oh, I'm not giving my tithes and offerings. No, there's definitely a blessing attached to that for us. If nothing else, is just exemplifying to God that we trust him with our money, because ultimately he gives it to us. Everything he gives to us is his, and we're just giving him a portion back. But sadly, especially with the rise of the mega church and celebrity pastors and so on and so forth, it has become a very easy point in the church to manipulate people on, because everybody wants a better financial situation. Everybody, again, wants more. We want more authority. We want more territory. We want more access. We want more wealth. We want more. So it's easy to manipulate it and say like, well, if you don't sow this seed, you're not going to get this much, in blessings. Or if you don't give such and such, God's not going to bless you, So be mindful of those kind of things when you hear it. That's spiritual abuse waiting to happen if it's not already happening, but it's definitely on the horizon. It's somewhere in the atmosphere. So that's something to be aware of. And I'm trying to think too. I would say also, I would throw in that same thing about being the black sheep and the black, the wolf in the pack, if you disagree with the leaders. I personally feel like that's a part of, spiritual abuse, because it's like, it's almost like driving home the point of like, your spiritual leader or leaders, depending on how many, they do this for, are like God, so how dare you disagree with them? How dare you not just take in everything they say and do and just go along with it? And how dare you have an opinion or, think for yourself? And then you kind of have like the group think that goes with it, and everybody just follows blindly. And then you have like the mob mentality where it's like, oh, you don't agree with us, okay, we're gonna blacklist you. Now you're not gonna sit with us. Maybe the pastor did something you didn't agree with, you told another leader about it, or other people, just in conversation, not with the divisive spirit, because like I said, we don't want to be divisive, but you brought it up with genuine concern. And maybe you went to a leader and you're like, hey, like, can I talk to you about this? And do you mind pulling in that other leader too? Like, maybe you reached out to that leader that did it, they didn't answer, so you're like, can you arrange for us to meet or whatever? Maybe other people heard about it, what have you. And now when you go to church, the energy is different towards you. Maybe they used to be like, hey, sister so-and-so, how are you, hugging you, kissing your kids and whatnot. And now they're just looking at you sideways. They act like you don't even exist. They look you dead in the face. You guys are locking eyeball to eyeball, and they just walk right by you like you don't matter. Like, when you notice those type of things, that's spiritual abuse and manipulation at its finest. And sadly, I have been through that. Where it's like, and honestly, I didn't say or do anything that I didn't agree with. I was thinking some things, but I didn't verbalize it to anybody. But I think in that case, it's because I wasn't partaking in certain ministries and stuff like they wanted me to. So the energy changed very quick once they saw that I wasn't partaking in those ministries. It was like, oh, well, you're not one of us. You're not as serious as we are, so we're not going to talk to you and this and that. And then I noticed when they would see me do other things, like maybe they would notice other things about me, like maybe they noticed, my prayer, like the fervency of my prayers or whatever. Because I be praying, y'all. I'm not even trying to brag, but I be getting it in, during the prayers. And they might witness that in another setting, and they're like, oh, wow, okay. And then they start acting different again, where it's like, oh, hey, girl. It's just very wishy-washy. It's very fake. It's like they only like you when you're doing what they want you to do, or when you fit in certain boxes and stuff like that. And so all of that, I would say, if you see it, it's unchecked, I would leave. Again, if you want to approach leadership, you can, but just like with the toxic culture, it's very hard to break through it. So if you are going to reach out with either the toxic culture or the unchecked spiritual abuse, just be ready for a mob mentality response. I hate to say that, but be ready to fight an uphill battle, because it's going to be very difficult to break through. And in the end, you still might end up leaving. So I just want to tell you that, so you go into it with a sober mind and you don't go in too cavalier, and then you end up more broken in the end, because sometimes you're like, I'm going to be the one to change it and this and that. And sadly, sometimes you just can't. Like, only God can change certain situations. So all you can do is bring it to their attention, be willing to work with them if they're willing to work with you. And then at some point you might just have to go ahead and go, and just find a healthier environment and just keep them in prayer. And you're just gonna have to do that. The cliques and hierarchy and the way that you serve too. Yes, like those in the music ministry think they're better than a greeter. Girl, exactly. I can't stand the bureaucracy of a lot of these churches. And don't get me wrong, when I say mega church, I'm not just talking about a church's size. Small churches can have a mega church mentality where it's very hierarchical, and I loathe that. Okay, I got out of the government because I don't want to deal with bureaucracy. If I wanted to deal with that, I'd still be working in the federal government, making well over 6 figures right now. I don't have the time for it. I don't like it, especially in a spiritual atmosphere. So I agree. Shady messages. Okay, yes, exegesis. We trying. So real quick, 4 ways to help you find a new church. 4 points that have helped me in my journey. Like I said, my family and I, we're not quite in the wilderness like we were, but we're not members of a new church yet. We've been attending one in particular. We still don't feel like God's like, yes, this is where you should join. So we're just kind of, we're just trying to figure it all out for the long haul. First and foremost, pray. I know we always say that, pray, but seriously, like pray. And I should have said pray and fast. I feel like when it comes to finding a new church or any major decision like that, fasting makes a huge difference. Like, and fasting is just powerful, y'all. And those of you who follow me for a while, know me, like, if it's one thing I'm gonna do is fast. I'm about to fast in a couple of days here because I just felt I felt inclined to do it. I'm just like, it's a good reset for your spirit. It has health benefits too, but God could speak to you so clearly. Like the Holy Spirit could break through to you so clearly when you fast, because it's just like your body is literally an open vessel to hear the word, and to be led by the Spirit. It's something about not eating. Like food really be distracting. And it be distracting, y'all. It be distracting. So I feel like pray and fast first and foremost. The other important thing, and I just thought of something else that I didn't write down. Hopefully I remember to say it. The other important thing is research. Okay, a lot of us, we go to a new city. Maybe you moved, maybe you haven't moved, but you're listening to this and you're like, okay, all the things she said sounds like my current church, and I've been feeling like I want to leave. So let me leave. You just Google, a quick Google search or Facebook search, you find a church local to you, you go, and then you're just diving into the deep end. Like, scale back a little bit, like don't go in head first. All right. Research, look at the church's statement of beliefs before you go anywhere. I know before I step foot in any church, I'm going to their website. I want to see what y'all believe. What do you believe? If they don't have a statement of beliefs, red flag, period. I don't care. They should tell you what they believe in. Why aren't you telling me what you believe in? Like, that's very shady. And something else I've seen recently too is they don't say it on the website, but they're like, oh, if you want to hear what we believe in, come to this meeting. Why do you want to lure me to your church so I can hear what you believe in? Because once I'm in there ain't no telling. Like, you got me for at least 30 minutes. Don't try to butter me up with donuts and coffee to tell me what your beliefs are. Tell me what you believe. Like, I want to know what your beliefs are. So if they don't say it to me, it's either they don't have any solid beliefs and they blow with the wind, or they know that their beliefs are shady and they kind of want to get you in there, lure you in with the lights and the camera and the action and the service and all this stuff so that you lose sight of it. So look at the statement of beliefs, dissect it, look at reviews, look at online sermons. A lot of churches now have an online presence of sorts. So whether it's on their Facebook page, YouTube, their actual website, look at some sermons, consume the content, see what the preacher and the leaders are talking about, see if you could observe and hear certain things before you get there. If you know people who go to that church, ask for their honest opinions, especially if you know it's someone who will give it to you. Because some people, they would never talk bad about something, and they know good and well it's toxic. They know good and well it's not healthy, but they'll never say anything. Talk to different people, and if you know them, it's even better because you already have a rapport, so they're not going to be so scared to like tell you. Because I can understand how if I'm at a church and someone new asks me, you don't know who they might go and tell, and you never want to come off like you're trying to be divisive. So yeah, try to ask different people. If you don't know anyone, go get to know some people, not just with the intent to ask, but get to know them genuinely. And then as you like discern that relationship, ask like, so what do you think about this or this or that, the third, et cetera, et cetera. Observe the leaders on social media. Okay. Now me, I'm a lurk, period. It don't matter whether it's church, business, I'm lurking. I'm looking at your social media. I want to see what you're about, Now, while social media isn't always the best indication of someone, because sometimes people just post a lot of memes. Sometimes they don't really even agree with something. They're just posting it for shock value or laughter. But it can give you a better insight into who the leaders are as people, and again, it's a highlight reel. So use discernment, but again, it's also going to help you just get a better insight into these people. Doing these things will give you a good preliminary idea of what the church is built on, what it stands for, and who the people that attend and lead the church, more importantly, what they stand for, what they believe in, and who they are as people. It will also help you determine ahead of time if you align with the church based on your own beliefs and values. So it goes back to that point where I was like, you need to know what you believe. Like, if you don't even know what you believe and why you believe it, then you don't know if you even align. So figure that out first and foremost. But once you have that figured out, then you'll be able to tell, like, okay, I don't really align with this church, so I'm not even going to waste my gas to go because I already see it's not going to work. Now if you do all that and you're like, okay, I'm going to just give it a shot, like I kind of did with my church now, you might be pleasantly surprised. So it never hurts to just go, if it's not too out the way, to just go. But I think doing these things ahead of time will definitely let you figure out in advance, like what you're about to step into. Another thing I would say, which I'm going to say before I forget, because I thought of it as I was talking, don't rush to join membership. Okay. You got to understand, when you go to a church for the first time, there's going to be well, not always. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a euphoric experience. You're going to be like, man, this is great. Praise and worship was on point. The word was fire. People were so friendly. People in church are told to be friendly, especially to new faces. One, we're supposed to be loving and friendly as believers. But two, let's be honest here. We're trying to get people to come to the church more often so we can grow as a church, make a bigger impact, so on and so forth. So if you're a greeter, you're told to smile, you're told to hug people. Ushers sometimes are the same. So I don't want to say take the hugs and the greetings and don't value it, but don't just take it for that's what you're always going to get, or like an indication of like a church being so loving and stuff. You really got to really get in there and go often enough and go more than one time to see whether they truly are a loving body or not. And that goes into the point, which I did write down, which is observe. So if you don't rush to join, now you're able to fully observe and visit the church for a little while, because one visit isn't going to cut it. Like, you got to go multiple times for a period of time. Like I said, I give it at least 3 months personally. Like, I know that might seem like a long time, but 3 months is a good time frame for a lot of things in life, because that's when the mask really starts to fall off. That's when people are like, okay, it is what it is at this point. 9 times out of 10, you would have walked through a life situation at that church at that point. You would have witnessed how they do certain things. And I really encourage you, if you can, to get as involved as you can. If they have a lot of events, go to more than just Sunday morning service. Like, go to midweek service. Most churches really aren't going to let you just attend a small group like that faithfully unless you join. But if they do, attend a small group. That's really going to help you get a temperature for the church. Go to their events, their concerts, their plays. Like, really try to immerse yourself as much as you can. I know it's going to be annoying at first, because people are going to be like, oh, you still ain't joined. You got to join. They're going to say it. Ignore them. Just go observe, take it all in. Because like I said, that first visit almost always is a magnified emotional experience. And so you really want to be sober minded when you make that decision to join the church. You don't want it to just be the high of a Sunday morning service of like, oh my gosh, that was so great, I'm going up to the front and I'm going to join. No, after you done had a couple of visits, after you done had a rough month at work, after your kids been getting on your nerves, your husband's been trying you or whatnot, do you still feel drawn to this? After you've observed how they act and whatnot, do you still feel drawn, or was it just an emotional experience? Because church is a very spiritual and a very emotional experience. So you have to be aware of that. Research, yes, honestly, go a couple times. Yeah, exactly. You already know, Michelle, you already know. Talk to different people every time you go to. Yep, that's a good one. And that's really easy to do if it's a big church too, because chances are you might not see the same person you saw last time anyway. Try to sit in different places. I had said that in my church cliques have to stop video, because different sides of the sanctuary give you a different experience, and then it's easier to talk to people when you're already kind of near them anyway. I wish I would have done that before I joined my church so quickly. Yeah, it happens. Like, I know someone who joined the church I'm going to now very quickly, and after being there for a couple of years, they realized, like, whoa, this is not what I thought at all. Like, and now you're a member. And again, God didn't design for us to church hop. So if you're joining churches quickly and then you realize, oh, this isn't what I wanted, now you're going to a next church, and now you're joining that church, and then, oh, not what I want. Now you're joining another church, and like, you just don't want to have a reputation or have that kind of marking in your life of being a church hopper. Like, kind of get some skin in the game. Treat it like a relationship. You're not gonna meet a guy tomorrow and marry him next week. Like you're gonna, you're gonna court him. You're gonna ask questions. Like ask questions too. I didn't write that down, but I think so many of us were raised in church environments where we were told not to ask questions for fear of being that black sheep and stuff. Ask the questions. Like you have a stake in that church because they're gonna be taking your tithes and offerings. They're gonna be taking your time. If you have children, they're gonna be pouring into your children. Do you believe in what they're preaching for your kids to pick up on that? That's something that I'm thinking about now. Being a mom, I'm like, well, do I see this church being a place where I want Christian to be poured into? Like, can he get what he needs? Especially being a single mom, I'm looking for him to have a certain level of male mentorship and stuff. Can this church provide that for my child, or would I have to shuck and jive and brown nose and suck my way up to, basically for him to get that? Like, I don't want to have to do that, So you have to really have these honest conversations. We're in the process of looking for a new home. And one thing I've been doing is watching the recent services of their YouTube pages. Yes, that is so good to do. Like, thank God for the internet. Like, we can really do a lot of background research before we go in. Because back in the day, you just had to go and you were like thrown to the wolves, but now you can really get some intel before you dive in. My leaders were braggadocious on their personal social media. I didn't know all of that until later. Yeah, you might see something and be like, I don't really like that, and that's okay. You don't have to like what they're doing. And I think when you do it beforehand, you spare yourself the hurt. Because I've seen so many people, even people I know now, where it's like, dang, now they're on the tail end of it. And it's like, if only I had known, And I feel like the pressure sometimes comes so heavy. And sometimes it can come from leadership, not at the new church, but it could come from your old church. Because if you have moved geographically like I have, your church is going to be concerned about your spiritual well-being. And so for them, it's going to be like, you got to get a church. You got to get a church. And one thing I've told my prior leaders is like, I definitely appreciate your concern for my soul. Because like I said, they don't play about me and my family. They see me through some really dark times. But I had to tell them respectfully, like, I need you to respect my time frame and my journey, because I want, Lord willing, the next church that I join to be a place where I can really set roots. I haven't been a part of a church where I could set roots since 2018. And it's really frustrating because it's just like you go to a church, you're like, okay, yeah, this is great. And then you see too many things that don't tick your list and honestly are red flags. You're like, oh man, okay, now we're back to the drawing board. So I'm really cautious about that. Now I get involved, I take in the information and all that, but I know when I join and I become a member, I want to be locked in. I want to be locked in for a long time. I don't want to have to move unless I get married and me and my spouse decide, let's find a new church home. I move out the area, or heaven forbid the church shuts down or something like that. Like, that's the only time I want to be ending membership, if I can have my perfect scenario. So that takes time to figure that out. But I will preface that, flip that over and say, while you're taking time, don't allow trying to figure everything out to keep you from joining. At some point, you're going to have to just take the plunge, but do your due diligence. It's a balance. Like, don't just join the first Sunday you go, but also don't be like attending for 10 years talking about, I'm still trying to figure it all out. Like, no, at some point, you got to say, okay, you know what? Like, I've seen enough. I agree with enough. I think we're good. I'm going to go ahead and join. I would say I hate putting a time frame on it, but if I had to put a time frame, I would say after attending a church faithfully for a year. And when I say attending, again, more than just Sunday service, you're going to midweek or it's small groups if you can. You're going to their events, you're talking to leadership, you're observing, you're really plugging in. It shouldn't take you more than a year, honestly, at this point. Like, I think that's good enough. I think if you're intentional for a year, within that time frame, you'll be able to tell. I would say even 6 months, you'll be able to tell, like, this is for me or it's not for me. So 6 months to a year, if I have to put a time frame on it. 2 years with extenuating circumstances. If you travel a lot for work, maybe you're military and you TDY a lot or something, like, stuff like that. But 6 months to 12 months should tell you if you're engaged, you're doing your research. And from there, you can pretty much decide, okay, yeah, this is for me. Let me go ahead and take the plunge, or it's not. Let me go ahead and start looking for other churches. So last point of how to find a church that suits you is to discern. So discern what you've seen, discern what you've heard, discern what you've been a part of over that period of time, that 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, whatever. Pray on it, journal about it. Oh, I'm glad you're back. I had to record for the last 20. Oh, no problem. I know it's a lot, but I'm glad that you're back. I'm wrapping up now too, because y'all been the real MVP sticking on here. But yeah, like, journal what you've seen, discern what you've seen, what you've heard. Like, how did you feel over time? That's why journaling helps too, along your everyday life or weekly life, because then you could look back and see. Maybe you might not remember, but you could look back and see like, okay, I've been feeling more um alarmed at this church than like affirmed, or I've been seeing more red flags than I've been seeing white flags. Or, okay, this has been a problem for me for the past 3-4 months of this church. I haven't been able to get over it, and I haven't been able to get leadership to talk to or whatever. So when you document it, it's better because, time passes. Sometimes you just don't remember quite everything. So journal about it, pray about it, be honest with yourself about whether or not you see yourself aligned with the church for the long haul, not just right now, but this is why you got to understand the mission and vision of the church too. So you can say, yeah, I can get down with that, or nope, that's not for me. And it's best that I go ahead and leave, because you don't want to slow up the progression of the church either. It's just sometimes it's not a good fit, and that's okay. There's many more churches to go around. So, that's all the points that I have. Ultimately, I think that these things will help you guys, and be aware of them. Like if you see red flags, I would say if you listen to this, and especially the signs that it's time to leave your church, if majority of them you could resonate with, leave at this point. Talk to leadership if you can, and then leave if that doesn't work, because it's just, no, there's too many churches out here doing great biblical work of the Lord for you to be staying in a church that is a walking red flag, toxic, and that you just don't align with. So I would go ahead and leave. If you're still in between and betwixt, you're like, I don't quite know, pray about it. God will let you know. Like when it comes down to being a part of the body of anything like that, God gives you a peace about it. I know a lot of times in life, people will say like, oh, it's God because things will just flow smoothly and you just have a peace about it. That I don't agree to that. With every area of life, sometimes what God wants you to do comes with warfare and turmoil and things like that. But I truly believe when it comes to church membership, it will be smooth. I really believe that's one of those instances where it will be smooth. You will have a peace about it, and God will show you like different signs and confirmation and stuff like this is where you're supposed to be. So, and He'll do the same if you pray, but you got to be willing to receive that no, because sometimes, like I said, you could be going to a church and you know it's not for you, but you want to be affiliated with that church. I know living in Atlanta, that's very common because we have a lot of celebrity churches here, churches where celebrities either own it or celebrities attend it. The leadership are becoming celebrities. So the church I'm going to now, the leadership, senior leadership of that church / church owner, he's moving up. He's definitely moving up. He's well connected, well affiliated, all that kind of stuff. Down the street from my house, what's his name? Pastor John Gray got a church literally like 10 minutes down the street from my house. I didn't even know that till I looked it up, and I realized they switched the church over, because it used to be another church. So, I'm living in an area where access to celebrities, and even one of the churches that Chandler Moore used to go to and worship at and be a leader at, that's not far from my house. I mean, like, so sometimes you want to be a part of a church, even the church Michelle was going to, celebrity churches. So it's just like these churches, sometimes you're like, I just want to be in the room. I want to be able to say, I go to this church and such is my pastor, or such is the worship leader of my church, and this and that. And it's not a good fit for you, but you're letting the hype distract you from where you really should be. And that's something where it's like, you have to guard yourself, and you have to really pray and ask God, like, what's a good fit for me? Because maybe where you're supposed to be is a small country church, and that's where God is calling you. Maybe where you're supposed to be is a church that is growing, and you're supposed to be a church planter. Maybe it's not celebrities there, but it's really dedicated shepherds that are part of the leadership team. So don't get too caught up in the hype. That's true, and we have to guard ourselves against that, wanting to be involved because who's associated, connected to that church. Exactly, Yasmin. That's exactly it. It's very easy. Most of us live in metropolitan areas where celebrities and celebrity churches are accessible. And so you just have to be aware, and that's something I constantly am praying about, even in my own case, because it's like, do I just want to be there because of that, whatever. So be prayerful, y'all. I hope this helped you. I just want to be where God is and where God has me, period, period. And when you're where God has you, it's a beautiful thing. Like I always say, my church in Virginia that I'm still technically a member of, and my church in Maryland, two churches that, now the church in Maryland, the pastor in his older age now, he's now like built a name for himself, more so regionally. I would say internationally too, because they have a global presence, but definitely regionally. But when I was going there, he was still kind of building and stuff like that. But even though he's built that I guess, sense of celebrity for himself. I know he's definitely still my shepherd in a lot of ways. In my church in Virginia, he has a smaller level of celebrity, but within that realm and that circuit, he's got a pretty good name for himself. So, but even still, none of them, both of them are not on the level of the church I've been attending now when it comes to celebrity and stardom. But I know that's where God had me in that season and where I was called to be. And now, like I said earlier, when we were talking, Yasmin, like I feel like God might be calling me back to affiliate with that church in Maryland as a hub or something like that. But I'm still praying on that. But needless to say, I can look back and see the blessing of being where God wants you to be, regardless of status, regardless of celebrity, regardless of what hype people are giving it. You know, like there's blessings attached to you being in alignment with God, and that He won't unleash in your life until you are in alignment. So, you know, or at least not to the full capacity until you're in alignment. So hopefully these tips help. When I saw my first lady on reality TV, all the insanity feelings I felt were 100%. Whoo, child. I can only imagine, girl, because there was a lot going on with that. So there was no doubt, honestly, that I needed to leave. Yeah, like, and sometimes we just get in our own way. It's hard, you know, because the process of finding a new church isn't easy. It's exhausting. If we're being honest, it's exhausting because it's like I gotta go there, I gotta research, I gotta go there, I gotta get plugged in, I gotta, you know, ask quite like, but it's worth it. And if you do your due diligence and you pray and you are yielding to the Holy Spirit, He'll lead you where you need to go. It might be a journey, and in the journey, that in order for you to not rush, I'll leave you guys with this: find community to plug into. And I mentioned that earlier before a lot of y'all came on, but find community to plug into. That it doesn't have to be affiliated to a church. It could be maybe a Bible study meetup. You know, look on meetup.com, look on Facebook, you know, find people that are believers that you can do life with in the interim. So that way you don't become desperate to find a church that you just join anywhere. And that would help. So, you know, either way, I hope these tips helped y'all. Thanks for hanging in there on a Monday, because I don't usually go live on a Monday. It's very exhausting. I didn't want to leave because I didn't want to have to do all the things right, you know, and that's kind of where my family is now. But we set a date in our minds where we're like, okay, if we still don't have peace about this by this time or whatever, we know at that point it's time to go. And we're okay with that. We made peace with that. And, you know, I'm grateful for the journey because it's never time wasted. It's just lessons learned. And it's things that God needed you to go through. Because now maybe you can turn back and help others. Like I'm helping y'all with this video through my stuff, you know? Yes, it will definitely be worth it. And I'm praying for you. And if you need suggestions, like I said, let me know. Because we were looking on that side too. Because we were trying to move to that side, but we can't now because of Christian school. So if you want suggestions, I could share some. But hopefully, like I said, this helps y'all. Thanks for hanging in on a Monday. I will be back Thursday night, but it's not going to be 9 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be 7 p.m. Eastern Thursday. This Thursday, we start our Domestic Violence Awareness Month series. So 6 p.m. Central Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. I will have Taylor Brianne Thornton. Thank you, Yasmin, for connecting us. This whole time we were connected and didn't even know it. It's hilarious, but thank you, Yasmin, for connecting us. She's going to be on here just sharing some insight and gems and stuff like that about abuse in general and just, you know, some things to just help us kind of set the month off. And then next week, I will have somebody, still confirming, but Lord willing, I will have somebody that could come on here and share their testimony with abuse. And then the end of the month, the last Thursday, will be Francesca. And she will be sharing gems with us about spiritual abuse and church hurt. So make sure you're plugged in. I will be sharing stuff through my email list. That's why I said make sure y'all join the email list in the description box. Because I'm not really on social right now. Like you might see me pop up on my stories here or there, but I'm not really on social for real. So join the mailing list and then also pay attention to the community tab. And if you ever see a thumbnail for a scheduled live pop up, set the reminder. So if all else fails, at least you get the reminder. Definitely worth it, Bree. It's like the more people in the family, the more needs I'm looking for. I know that's another thing too, because I'm multi-generational in my family. So I got my mom, she's elderly and married. I got my sister, single, middle-aged. I got me, single mom, you know, early 30s, like mid-30s. I don't even know what I am anymore. Early 30s, mid-30s. I don't even know. But either way, like it's different needs. My son, he needs stuff, you know, so it's a lot. But we gonna get it done. And I just want us all to be wise and have discernment. I don't want any of us to go through any more church hurt if we can avoid it. I know everything works together for our good, but let's do our due diligence to not go through things that we could avoid. You know, like let's not add extra stress to our lives by not doing our due diligence. So anyways, y'all, yeah, my sister is middle-aged. She's almost 40. So I'm thinking that's isn't that middle-aged? Like 40? So like, it's not, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't even know. Cause there's some people that say we're middle aged. So I'm just like, we are. Like, I don't know where I am anymore. Like, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know where I fall. I'm not a young adult like that. You know, I'm almost out of that. I'm not quite middle aged. I don't know. Like, I'm just here. I'm just here. Right. Like, what does Google say? What is middle age? 40. Yeah, 40 is young, but see, we're closer to 40, but or getting closer to 40. But I think 40 is middle age. Like, I thought 50. Well, I thought middle age was like 40 to like 55, because then 55 starts like the young elderly. Like, you know, like you're the youngest of the old people when you're 55 or seasoned people. Because I know some people don't like old. But yeah, like I thought 40 to like 55 was middle age. Isn't that it? I don't know. What did Google say? 40 to 60 is middle age. Okay, so but see, see, when I use the young adult example, I'm using that 18 to 35 that most organizations use. So we're at the tail end of it, but we on our way out. So I don't know. We just in our 30s. Like, pretty soon we just gonna be in our 30s, I guess. Like, not young adult, not middle age, just an adult. So, you know, I don't know. But middle age is 40 to 60. You learn something new every day. My soul is beyond time, period. Okay. Y'all know I be saying all my life I had to fight. Like, I be feeling I'm about to be 34 next month, November 28th, y'all. I'm thinking I might do another live Get Ready With Me because my birthday is a Monday. I don't know. We'll see. But stay tuned because we got time. We just getting through October. But my spirit, my soul be feeling like I'm 65. Like, I don't live so much life. I'm just like, Lord. Middle age is 50. Isn't it 40 to, well, Yasmin said Google said 40 to 60. So I don't know, y'all. I'm team bring on the 40s. So if it's middle age, go ahead then. Hey, I hear 40s is where it's at for real. Like, I feel like that's when you're really living your best life. Because now 30s is like the new 20s. Like, we still figuring it out. So I don't, I don't know. I don't know, y'all. We gonna see. But let me get up out of here because at this point I'm just rambling. And I got stuff to do. I gotta be sending out emails and stuff for Thursday. But y'all enjoy your holiday. I don't know if everybody had 54. Where, Leslie? You look like you're 30. You are not 54. See, that's what I'm talking about. Age is a blessing. Like, I love aging. Like, to be able to say, and now I'm at the point where and yes, well, I'm gonna wish you happy birthday again next Thursday. I'm gonna write it down, matter of fact, so I don't forget. Let me write it down. But I'm at the age where, well, honestly, I think I've always been this way, where I just love getting older. And I'm at the age now where people are like, you're 33? I thought you were like 26. And I'm like, yes. So I love it. I love it. I just love aging. It's a blessing, especially in this day and age, to age. So praying long life for everybody. I don't care whether you 25, 35, 55, 75. I just pray we get more life and blessed life at that. Not just surviving, but thriving. So that's my prayer for everybody. You know, right. I'm like, wait a minute, let me get my exfoliation together because Leslie's wanted me to shave. I'm here for it. Yes, you better look like the God you serve. Okay, period. So, but I hope y'all enjoying your day off. If you had it off, because I realized not everyone did. And if you did, I hope you're enjoying it. I enjoyed not having to take Christian to school today. So that was a good thing. Definitely God. People are not shocked when I tell them I'm 34. Yes. No, I can tell. I'm weak, Yasmin. That's how you know you are an honest person, because some people will try to gas it up. You're like, no. Since I needed that laugh today, that was hilarious. Y'all, and that's a blessing, period. Okay, you look great for your age. They can feel that way if they want, but you are blessed to see 34, and you've experienced a lot too. And look at God just bless you even more, period. So, you know, I'm here for it. I'm here for it all. But enjoy the rest of your day, y'all. Yes, don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to like the video, share it with someone, especially if they're in a transitional phase. And I'll just keep you guys posted because this is an ongoing conversation. So as I learn more, as my journey progresses, I'll share more and so on and so forth. And I'll try to get more guests on my channel as well when it comes to this particularly. We'll see how God works it all out. I'll be like, dang, right, you know. Like, they have no shame in saying it. Yeah, that's happened for me within the last like year. Hey Molly, sis, you're coming in for the benediction. Actually, the goodbyes at this point. But we covered a lot of different topics. So I'm sure when you watch the replay, you'll be able to leave some comments and stuff. And if you guys have any questions about anything, don't feel afraid to leave a comment. If you want me to elaborate more on anything on the video, I love when you guys like ask questions and you want me to like dive in more, because it just makes it easier for me to plan my content and stuff. So yes, definitely. Amen, Bree. Amen. Definitely let me know in the comments. And I will see you guys Thursday. Just remember, it's at 9 p.m. Eastern. It's 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to put it on the community tab. 7 p.m. Eastern this Thursday, 6 p.m. Central. So make sure you're here, because we want to support Taylor coming and speaking to us and all of that, especially since it was so last minute. Like, so I'm grateful that she agreed. Right. You know, all right, y'all. I'm gonna get up out of here. Enjoy the rest of your day, though. I'll be seeing y'all on the internet. Join the mailing list, and if you're a Christian single woman near Atlanta, or in Atlanta, you don't mind coming, whatever, then join us on the 22nd. I should have put the event link on the description. I'll just post it in the pinned comment, and click our social media pages. You'll see all the updates and stuff. But bye, y'all. Let me get my day going, because I'll stay on here cutting up with y'all. But have a good day. Be safe. Have a great week. I'll see y'all Thursday night. Bye.